today we're ranking the worst of the worst across every Mortal Kombat game. That's right, not only am I explaining the weakest characters for every game, but I'm also ranking them against each other to find the absolute worst characters in Mortal Kombat history. Because it's been too long since we had a good tier list on this channel. So today I'm going big and covering every major game. Not the Game Boy ones and stuff because I never played them. I mean, look at this right now. Is that even a real game? Just kidding. Some of those games are great, but sadly, there's no competitive record for them. So it's basically impossible to know which characters sucked the most, which is why I'm sticking to the main games today. And real quick, just because there's always that one guy in the comments section, this video is not about power level or how cool the characters looks or even how sexy they are. Alright, nothing like that. This video is just about the gameplay, because some characters in Mortal Kombat games really sucked. So let's start from the beginning, the original Mortal Kombat game, which did not have many characters, and also the gameplay between characters was fairly similar, and yet somehow Raiden, of all characters, managed to suck the hardest, which is funny because he's a god, so you'd think he's the strongest character in the game. But nope, turns out Raiden had a very big problem. Many of his special moves were very punishable, especially on reaction. His teleport, for example, could be reacted to and punished, but his electric fly was especially bad because even on hit, when he landed this move, the opponent could still punish him in certain situations. That's right, Raiden could land this move and then still get punished for it, which was not good, and possibly the main reason people consider him the worst character in the game. So next up is Mortal Kombat 2, and once again, the worst character is pretty shocking. Reptile, of all characters, is the worst in this game, which is crazy to think about because he was a secret fight in the previous game with the combined moves of Sub-Zero and Scorpion, so you'd think in the next game he'd be really good. But nope, turns out Reptile is really slow. Ironically enough, Reptile, of all characters, is slow, which is hilarious to anyone who's played MK9 when he's lightning fast, but back in MK2 he was slow, which is pretty much a death sentence in Mortal Kombat 2, and Sub-Zero's got a similar issue, so he'll be around the same spot on this tier list as Reptile. However, Reptile was slightly worse because his force ball could be reacted to, jumped over, and kick punished. That's right, if you fought Reptile and saw him do the force ball, you could jump over and kick him on reaction every single time. That's how slow Reptile was. Then on top of that, his special moves were nothing impressive in this game, so that's why Reptile sadly is the worst character in Mortal Kombat 2. Next up is Mortal Kombat 3, and Stryker was actually the worst character, but not by too much. He's not suffering too badly, which is why he's going in this tier. Stryker was mainly boring, not so much terrible. His special attacks were lacking, and his punches and kicks didn't have good range either, so running in and trying to pressure the opponent was not very good. So overall, Stryker was just suffering in Mortal Kombat 3. But then for Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, we have Shiva, and my goodness, this character suffered. She had bad combos, terrible matchups against certain characters, and because she was bigger than everyone else, you could do special combos on just her that did more damage. Or in other words, once Shiva got hit, she suffered more than everybody else. But then on top of that, Shiva was the only character to not get anything new in the Ultimate version of Mortal Kombat. Many other low tiers got a new move or something else to make them better, not Shiva. She got left in the dust, which is why she's the worst character, and honestly, if you pick her in Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, you're asking for suffering. Next up is Mortal Kombat 4, and it's a close tie between Kai and Shinnok. Both of these characters had very lackluster special moves and just nothing unique in general to give them any advantage. For example, Kai's fireball was terrible. He aimed it upwards and then it came down later, which meant it never hit anybody because they could react to it or just move out of the way. It didn't even go forward. And oddly enough, Shinnok had a similar problem. Despite being the final boss of the game, he was very boring when you played him, with nothing unique whatsoever, but he could steal one of the opponent's moves, which gave him something, right? Some sauce on top of Kai, which is the only reason he's slightly better in this game overall. Finally, it's time for the 3D era, and first up is Deadly Alliance, a very fun game from many of our childhoods, and you might be shocked to learn that Cyrax is actually the worst character in this game. And even more shocking, it's because his damage was really low. That's right, Cyrax, of all characters, who's known for crazy combos in Mortal Kombat 9, actually had the lowest damage in this game. Then on top of that, he had no mix-ups or crazy stance canceling for movement or pressure, so yeah, he's just lacking. Which meant overall, he wasn't bad so much as boring. He lacked anything to make him powerful against other characters, and on top of that, had the lowest damage. All of which is hilarious when you consider that Cyrax had to be unlocked in the game with the rarest currency, so he took time to unlock, and your reward was a terrible character. Alright, next up is Deception, and here's where things get funny, because Sindel had a glitch very similar to Raiden, but with a different favorite move. Remember how earlier I mentioned that Raiden could attack you, land the hit, and then still get punished despite landing the move? Yeah, Sindel had something similar, but with her throw. That's right, if Sindel threw her opponent, they could quick rise before she recovered and then punish her, sometimes with a full combo depending on the stage spacing. And some of you might be thinking, oh, it's just the throw, what's the big deal? No, in Deception, throws were a big deal. They could not be broken. And on top of that, you could guarantee throws in certain situations and setups. So yeah, throws were a big deal in Deception, and Sindel just could not do hers, because if she did, she got comboed instead of the opponent, which is why many players consider Sindel the worst character in Deception from a competitive level. Next up is Armageddon, and sadly Kai is here once again for the exact same reason too. Just like in Mortal Kombat 4, Kai has no sauce in Armageddon. That's right, no sauce, along with Frost, which is funny because Frost was actually top tier in Deadly Alliance because she had an infinite, but that disappeared in Armageddon, so just like Kai, she's without any sauce. Her special moves, regular attacks, and stances were nothing special. And believe it or not, that's all it took for Kai to be bottom tier in Armageddon, but if you don't believe me, you can ask around. Many players do consider him the worst. So now finally, to end the 3D era, we have Mortal Kombat vs. DC, and Lex Luthor, along with Catwoman, were pretty terrible in this game, mainly because they were honest characters in a dishonest game. For anyone watching who's not aware, this game was ridiculous, and many of the characters were downright broken. For example, some characters could punish you for using Combo Breaker, or had combo infinites, or constant block pressure that could kill you on block from chip damage, all that incredible stuff. This game was wild, and sadly, of all characters, Lex Luthor is boring. You would think the smartest man on Earth would have some really creative stuff, but no, he's actually the most boring character in the game, and Catwoman is just behind him. Both of these characters were extremely lacking. Alright, now finally, it's time for the NetherRealm era. Mortal Kombat 9 had two very bad characters. Jade and Shiva were both pretty bad in this game. However, Jade was just lacking, right? She's a boring character who's kinda slow with no mix-ups and nothing crazy in general. And as a result, she had losing matchups against every character in the game except for herself or Shiva. That's right, Shiva might honestly be worse than Jade in this game, though honestly, I go back and forth on that opinion. Today, I think that Shiva might be worse, because just like Mortal Kombat 3, she was bigger and slower, which made her easier to hit and easier to combo, and also her gimmicks were bad too. Her stomp in this game was terrible, along with pretty much every other unblockable. In fact, even blocking was worse for Shiva because her hitbox was so big. She could not escape pressure that other characters could duck under. So yeah, both Shiva and Jade were bad in this game for different reasons. Next up is Mortal Kombat X, and I can think of two characters, or rather two variations, that suffered very badly in this game. One of them was Unbreakable Sub-Zero, and in fact I made a full video about this character discussing why he was so bad and also why nobody played him at any tournament ever, and you can't find the footage. So if you want a more complete breakdown, check out that video. But to keep things simple, Unbreakable Sub-Zero was missing his iconic tools in this variation and instead had anti-chip damage and parry attacks, neither of which were very good in Mortal Kombat X. But then we have Warlock Quan Chi, who was fine when the game launched, but in the final update he got screwed because Quan Chi's main weakness was his armored reversal. It's his teleport. However, thankfully Warlock had a different armored move that was great for getting the opponent off you. Guess what though? It went away in the final update. That's right, NetherRealm removed the only reason you would ever pick this variation of Quan Chi by nerfing that one attack. Or in other words, there's literally no reason to pick Warlock Quan Chi. The only reason you would was nerfed into the ground. Next up is Mortal Kombat 11, and in this game you can mix and match your own moves to create custom variations, and as a result it's kinda tough to decide which character was the worst. However, most people would agree it's Rambo, not because he's terrible or anything like that, he's honestly not. However, his mix-ups just weren't that good and didn't do very much damage. Then on top of that, Rambo was terrible at countering breakaway, which is a big deal in Mortal Kombat 11, and his anti-airs were not super good either, both of which are a big deal in MK11. Your anti-air game and countering breakaway is a big deal, and Rambo did not have either. So next up, it's time for Mortal Kombat 1, and sadly, Tanya, of all characters, is considered the worst in this game by many players. And unlike some other characters in this video with terrible attacks or downright terrible design, Tanya has none of that. She's just boring and lacking any of the sauce, which is funny because she used to be really good until NetherRealm took away her block pressure, which honestly NetherRealm had to do that because the block pressure was insane and just unfair, but once that was gone, Tanya was just a hollow shell of a character. She has no real mix-ups, which means the opponent can just wait for an opening and then punish her. Tanya has nothing to threaten or surprise the opponent with, which is why she's the worst character in a game like Mortal Kombat 1. Alright everyone, and there you have it, the worst character in every Mortal Kombat game. I've explained why, and here on screen you can see how they rank against each other. The top row is no sauce, which pretty much just means boring. The next row is lacking, which means characters were missing vital tools that other characters had in the game. Then you have the crippling tier, which meant picking this character gave you a severe disadvantage for any number of reasons. And sadly, Shiva is here twice, once in UMK3 and then again for Mortal Kombat 9 for pretty much the same reasons. Big hitbox, slow attacks, and terrible matchups. It happened twice, poor girl. But alright everyone, there you have it, the worst characters in every Mortal Kombat game and also how they rank against each other. Thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like down below, it helps the channel out a ton. And then finish that combo by subscribing and ringing that bell so you never miss any future videos. Make sure to come back next time and as always, stay underdogs.